Good morning, boys and girls, friends, lovers, children of all ages. Welcome to the morning Roundup. My name's Brian Loma. We're seeking justice. Welcome to all of you who are joining us, starting with Lucinator 69 here this morning. Today we're going to do just a brief roundup on about 5 or 6 stories that are important to you and I think you should be following. The first of these is the next federal prosecutor for the state of Colorado. And what I want to draw attention to here today is that one of the 3 finalists is Kristen Bronson. She is the city attorney for the city and county of Denver and has a particular violation of rights flavor to persecute with area restrictions. You may be familiar with the concept of an area restriction because in domestic violence settings where 2 humans living under the same roof, maybe sharing things like the last name, children, and the relationship goes sour, an area restriction would be utilized for people to stay apart from one another. Unfortunately, Miss Bronson has a history of committing to utilizing area restrictions to silence free speech. We've seen that through the summer of 2020 and the following court processes where area restrictions are being used to restrict human beings from being in their own housing areas without permission from the court to live in their house because they went outside to visualize or participate in an outcry against the city or the government or actions that are going on in the community. So we'll talk about this very briefly. Kristen Bronson, Hetal Doshi, and Cole Finnegan were recommended by the state's 2 Democratic U.S. senators to be nominated by President Joe Biden. So the city attorney, Kristen Bronson, as it says, is one of the top 3 finalists for a position to persecute federal crimes for the state of Colorado. She has no federal crimes history, and as a matter of fact, I don't know Cole's history, but it says here currently only one of these people is a federal prosecutor. So taking on the top role might consider being on the inside a little bit, right? Or is it that because you're rich and wealthy and you take backdoor money, allegedly, because that's the way the allegations of Denver City work. But we also know that they promise and kowtow to the Downtown Denver Partnership, the landowners on the 16th Street Mall, and others when they fraudulently attempt to participate in free speech by prosecuting people for doing things as simple as educating while feeding the unhoused. You can find more about Kristen and the article here on the Colorado Sun in the links. I have been talking to many of you about Gram Free, and in the links I have also included a link to refer to my gram. Currently, in the first roughly 10 days, I'm at 58 gram, no expenses, just a little time spent rolling an imaginary dice, signing, as is the primary part of this. So far, I've signed 11 smart contracts. And so this is a daily activity to do 5, you get up to 5 smart contracts in total in a row running, and you just stay on it on a daily basis. Every 5 days, you get credit for one of them. And as you can see, gram is currently running at $3.47 a gram. When you accumulate 500 gram, then you'll be able to cash out at the grand price of your choice. As you know, as the market fluctuates, you can choose to cash out at that point, but you have to have a minimum of 500 gram. One of the free daily activities you can do 5 times a day, of course, is to roll the dice. So we'll do that for the moment and see what happens here. At 1.1 gram, that is the minimum on a regular basis that you can earn 5 times a day. Next story. Oh, you didn't even see all that, did you, folks? Because I forgot to switch screens. Good morning, folks. Let's try that again. Share a new page. Let's share a new screen. Did you know that after RTD banned sitting, lying, and eating at Union Station, activists went there to sit, lie, and eat? Have you ever heard of that before? Oh, maybe if you followed the exploits of Eric Brandt, Denver activist and journalist, as he videotaped 2 years worth of not wearing his shoes on the bus because they said you had to have shoes on your feet to get on a bus. So yesterday, after hearing about the new rules at RTD to ban sitting, lying, and eating, as reported here in the Denverite by Nathaniel Miner of CPR News, a group of activists went to Union Station. You can see some of that video on my channel, Cut the Plastic, or on TrueTube, that's TRUTUBE.live, where we are also going to be simul-broadcasting on a regular basis. Sitting, yelled the activist, is not a crime, replied a small group sitting on a yoga mats in the Chestnut Pavilion bus depot next to Union Station in downtown Denver early on Wednesday. Eating, the activist, Ian Thomas Tafoya, continued, is not a crime, came the answer. Tafoya paused, then took a big bite out of a banana. I want you all to know that in this photograph, Ian is wearing 2 masks currently in tight and close spaces with high traffic as a recommendation of the CDC. However, that recommendation comes because most people aren't wearing filtered masks. You can see the mask is hanging from his face. The secondary one is a filtered mask made by yours truly at CO Masquerade. You can shop comasquerade.org to get your face mask as well. The group of about a dozen was, as you saw yesterday, there was a protest at the transport facility because they're banning eating, lying, and sitting on the floor because of problematic and unsafe behavior at the station. Now, folks, I want to tell you that we know 100 people died in Union Station in roughly a year, or roughly 100 people died from heroin overdoses, needle injections in the bathrooms. Union Station took off the doors for a while, and they eventually put doors back on because they recognized that you have to have privacy, but they made the door changes so that there were cutouts and they could be reached open by security guards. Another thing that you may have noticed in our video yesterday is that there is now RTD Police Department. Here in the story on the Denverite, we see that advocates allege that the policy is targeting those of the unhoused community, which is absolutely what we know to be true. But not just those people are impacted. If you watch yesterday's video and the resulting interviews, which we're working on an edit of, you'll see that people traveling across the country are also being told you cannot lie here, you cannot fall asleep while you're waiting for your bus, that you paid a ticket to get on the next one, right? And so that's a concern. I'm sure it's a concern for people that missed their bus because they were asleep. Generally, there's some designated areas for each of the routes, but those are other issues and greater concerns. So, Asher Crown of Capitol Hill Outreach Medics, which is a group in the Metro Denver area providing medical, mutual aid, food, shelter, assistance as able, other mutual aid aspects, said that we see this as the continued genocide of the homeless and we find it unacceptable. They want to reverse the policy. In a press release that last week, RTD CEO and general manager came out and said that they're implementing these policies based on employees, customers, and the general public being safe. The Denver Public Department of Public Health issued citations to RTD after workers observed customers and employees not wearing masks, not social distancing, and eating. And you got to read this article in its fullness because what you find out is that people are subject to these regulations if they're in the bus terminal. But if they're at Union Station paying for their meals and sitting at hosted tables, as you also might have seen in our videos yesterday, then you're allowed to take off your mask and eat and drink. So it's definitely a misdirection in policies. But as I also want to show you today, man, we're having some troubles with our stream. I do apologize. Here. Are you getting this? There we go. Here's the Denverite article. After RTD banned sitting and lying, there's some photos. There's Ian Tafoya with the banana on his face. Another gentleman, Timothy Reno, who was asked to leave because he fell asleep on a bench. And he's trying to stay warm at 7 o'clock in the morning. Wake up. So there's RTD communicating with people. They got to move along while others are doing yoga on the ground. There's one of our members of the community sitting in, just quietly meditating as yoga was occurring. Miss Janet Madsen, seen in the corner here, right there. Those are familiar with some of the crew. CEO for RTD Security. There's Crash Landon in the background here. Additionally, I want to show you a couple more things before we cut the feed here this morning. Anti-racism in West Adams County. A community conversation. I want you to know that this is a public event you can find on Facebook. And I think that it's a good place to be involved when it comes to online activities. For Sunday afternoon before the football game, depending on the community you live in. Or maybe you're boycotting the Super Bowl on Sunday because, it's the NFL and Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job as a quarterback, even though he qualifies and could possibly beat Tom Brady, but we'll never possibly have a chance to know if this is Tom's year after he hopefully loses to the Kansas City Chiefs because he beat my Packers to kick Aaron Rodgers out of his chances for a ring. So come check out the anti-racism in West Adams County. Additionally, we are going to cover a couple things with that code of conduct. I want you guys to see some issues, maybe plan some communication. RTD's Code of Conduct contributes to safety during the COVID-19 crisis. Basically, they're saying They're singling out behaviors, not people. Right here. This is it. I want you to see their right? Places, not people. Behaviors, not people. What does that mean to you? To me, it means that there's a situation where if we're not changing everybody's behavior as a whole, it's going to be negative for some of us. Mask mandates are out there to protect me from breathing on you, also from me catching it in the air. What I observed yesterday was not RTD drivers providing masks or security guards handing out masks to people who didn't have them, right? It's cold outside. Can you take a sip of coffee? Can you eat a banana? Can you put your mask back on? You should be able to. Reasonably in a safe manner. Minute moments of time where, in a general basis, you're considering these things. Now, I also want to note that there was no temperature checks before getting on the buses or coming into the lobby. There's no temperature checks to get on trains. So measures that other countries are doing, or maybe other regions of the United States are doing, to actively mitigate the transmission potentials by controlling behaviors, getting on a train when you have a fever, going to your job when you're sick, are not the corrective measures that they're focusing on. They're focusing on humans resting, residing in a space, waiting for a transit scenario without providing alternatives, right? So you're not checking in at the bus driver's thing saying, I'm here. Great, would you like to eat? We'll check your bags downstairs at the bus and you can go upstairs and eat. Or you're welcome upstairs as an RTD passenger to sit inside Union Station and eat at a table. That's the designated eating area. So these are potential comments that you may be making to the customer care of RTD. As you can see on the bottom of their page here, this is rtddenver.com. There's a variety of ways to communicate with them, connect with them on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. They've got stories, blogs, emails, and community involvement options, all located right here. So those are the methodologies that I might recommend. If you understand the concepts that we're giving you here, I'm sure you understand these concepts because when we look at the code of conduct, which is committed to laying out the behaviors of the common population that would impact COVID or health and safety to get on a public transit system that is taxpayer funded, you'd have to reach out to the authority, as in stated number 2, the board of directors. One of the boards of directors actually believed that the prohibited conduct laid out here, some of it had been modified to benefit a process in which we were efforting. And it seems like we might have to sue RTD to get what we need out of this based on their bias. RTD is committed to offering safe, clean, and reliable, courteous, accessible, and cost-effective transportation throughout the district to all constituents. Miss Caroline, who many of you know, is the bondswoman of choice for Denver, Colorado, and the metro area. Should you need a bondswoman, call Carolyn. If you need that information, Eric will be glad to assist you with a referral, or you can reach out directly. I just don't have that available to us. But it was Carolyn's daughter who in the 60s chained herself to buses with others and members of ADEPT that has this accessible in the system. Now, RTD is going to, prior to enforcement, make every attempt to first educate a person on the conduct prohibited. So, police officers and security guards walking around and saying, please put your mask on. Hey, we really don't want you to eat here. Man, you can't sleep in the building. That's their jobs, right? Who wants that as a job? So you got to be in the zone. You got to pay your fare, right? So you got to have a bus pass on you, is essentially what they're saying, to be in the fare paid zone. You got to be on the vehicles with your bus tickets. You have to have the ability to present that to somebody. So if you fail to do it, you're violating the first three rules, right? Now, hand billing, gathering signatures, or communicating with others of public interests are attempted to be addressed in here. Smoking, eating, drinking, littering is an issue, but they don't have compost, recycling at bus stations, at train stops. There's no bathrooms. You're not even supposed to smoke on the property if you're within certain areas or zones. You can't cause a disturbance or exhibit behavior that causes other people to have issue. So if you're schizophrenic and having an outbreak with a Tourette's, you have a mental health condition, you're not allowed to be in the zone, and that could be a problem. You can't have your animals on you unless they're trained to assist with disabilities. Mental health is not considered a disability currently, unless there's some things like carriers and stuff, right? But I really want to get down to 42, because for those of you who are familiar with Eric Brandt and the years-long history of footwear in the city and county of Denver on RTD passenger services, you're going to notice that failure to wear footwear, shirts, tops, and pants, short skirts, on or in any RTD vehicle or facility subject to ADA reasonable modification, see Code Section 4, is a violation. So basically they're trying to use the ADA exceptions as an access point to authorize the shoe rule. How does that work? Not sure. I'd love to see some legal research on that. And it's a bit of the conversation that I'm going to have today. Is that I think that with the kind of work that people are doing out there in the world, having researchers, having legal professionals in the system, and volunteers doing the work for that is a key aspect. So, I encourage you to consider joining the Colorado Freedom Fund. Let's see if I can find this here. The Court Observation System with the ACLU, that's what it is. So let me switch tabs again and not have difficulties with hip hop. I am a cheesehead by birth, so those are tricks to the knowledge. Of course, we love the Broncos. I don't know why my new image is not sharing on the screen, but we'll have to figure that out later. Chrome tab I'm now going to apply to you is Court Watch Colorado community event. If you get time to do this today, it's at noon Mountain Standard Time. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, so I'm going to make a special moment here for a second. And post this. This is a training for Colorado residents who want to watch court, participate in the process, maybe keep their courts and the system of bond and bail and affordability accountable. That's the ECLU. That's today at 12 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Please go to that page specifically to see that and participate in that event. So we showed the shoes. We're going to go back to that one more time because I want you to make sure that we are aware that there's a phone number here at the bottom for questions about civil rights. There are situations where RTD's policies and procedures do not achieve ADA objectives and accessibility. A modification to these policies and procedures may be needed to ensure that a passenger with a disability has access to our services. Is being poor a disability, folks? I really don't know. But the modifications are not intended to cause a direct threat to the health and safety of others. Continue to go back to the health codes. Is wearing shoes a health code violation? Please, folks, we've got to focus on these things. Because you can, there's enforcement rules on both ends. So if you don't comply when you're asked to leave RTD facilities, or you don't have your bus pass on you, you can be trespassed. You can be banned from use of services. And that's a problem. So the last thing that I want to share with you is the STAR program. Again, this is the Denverite, a Denver newspaper, place that I'm often quoted, cited. People come to things that I tend to be at or cover things that I continue to talk about. And if you are familiar with the 2 years of participating in the transition of being a activist to a gonzo journalist who is actively integrating into a variety of resources in the community, then you know that the STAR program, Dasher, Hops Not Cops, service orientation is the key focus of sustainable community shifts. So this is Chris Richardson, Carly Celion, with the Mental Health Center of Denver on the left and on the right. Spencer Lee, a Denver health paramedic. They ride around in this truck. We saw them the other day on Stout and Park Avenue West, 21st. This article by David Sachs has one key point. In the first 6 months of healthcare, where professionals replace police officers, nobody was arrested. And I want you to think about that. Because that's a real issue. The less we criminalize people, the more we give them advantages and options, the better off we are. So there's so much going on a daily basis. I have something to do at 10, and I've got a nooner with you all who will be live in the Denver metropolitan area, joining us on the ACLU incident, the training for court watch observation. So this civilian team we want to talk about, since June 1st, a mental health clinician and a paramedic have traveled around the city in a white van, a former cop vehicle, still a cop vehicle, quite honestly, that would have otherwise been given to cops. And the work that they do in that van is stuff that would otherwise be given to police officers, to cops. In its first 6 months, the Support Team Assisted Response Program, or STAR, a cop logo, has responded to 748 incidences. None of them led to arrest or jail time. We want to recognize that this is a program that was brought to us by Dasher, the Denver Alliance for Street Health Response or Resiliency. I can't remember. It's one of the two. DASHR. That says Hops Not Cops, and brought this program to Denver. It's been 5, 6, 7 years in the making. So the civilian team works from 10 to 6 and in this day, and they handled 6 situations, which leads me to believe that they're actually taking their time on them. So the idea is that we don't want police officers handling these things. Here's some demographics I want you to look at, though. Who's been housed? Who's been helped? 59% are male, 41% are female. 32% of people who are housed, 68% are people who are unhoused. What does that mean? That means they're going to people who have a home and helping them too. Who's a veteran? Who's not a veteran? 90%, roughly 5%. Don't say they're a veteran, but probably are, right? So, thank you, Chief Paul Pazin, for saying that it's good stuff, right? But we've been telling you that as activists for years. It's not the Pazin's goal. It's the city's goal. It's the citizens' goal. And that's the bias in this article that I want to point out today. But the idea is that they want to get this goal, this program, so that every neighborhood can use its services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right? So the money's coming from the budget, from grants, from sales tax funded mental health relief fund. Carly, who we've interacted with a variety of times, one of the civilian social workers on the team, said more vans and more food and blankets to go with them, as well as weekend and after-hour shifts, would do big things for the program. Of course it will. For the limited amount of calls that the funding of the program has, the newness of it, it's what? June, July, August, September, October. 9 months in the making. Nearly 750 calls. Right? 250 a quarter. 80, 90 a month. That's averaging 3 a day, but I'm sure that they're changing because of the growth of the process and how quickly they had to respond. Or maybe they've ramped up, so maybe at first it was only a couple, right? Again, the Denverite article should be in the links. We're at half an hour, folks. Don't forget to join the ACLU today at noon. Unequal treatment of the law. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Frank Sturgill. The video of the city will most likely be used in court as a baseline for any arrests. And I think there's more video than what I took, because I know there were others that are photographed, Crash Landon being one of them, who was at the action yesterday and had no shoes on, allegedly. Anyway, folks, I did say I have a 10 o'clock meeting I need to tend to. Won't you please share this video? Tell some people that I'm adding a new channel. I'm doing some morning roundups here instead of the breakfasts, and that we're going to keep pumping out live streams of actions from both places, as well as TrueTube.live. Again, don't forget TrueTube.live, as we want you to join that page. Seek more efforts to be uncensored. There's some other stuff I want to cover, but there's not enough time in the day. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.